Hey everybody, Mr. Desai here. Hope everyone is doing well. It is June 2nd, and I wanted to introduce kind of our big wrap up for the year and why I'm doing it, what it is, and the importance of reflection. So, it is a two-part sort of end of the year reflection project. It does pertain to math, but also pertains to um, your whole school experience this year, and also things that are happening in the world and in your community that can be very traumatic and be very um, big things that you're dealing with as young people. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to express yourselves um, with those things, and also express yourselves in the sense of feedback about your education, um, both the online learning part and the part in the beginning of the year when we were all together at school. Um, in terms of the format and what we'll do, if you notice behind me, this is the first part. This is what we're going to be working on this week. It's the first week of June. Next week, we're going to have a second part, which I'm also going to talk about today. So this will project, and you will submit it during the third week, which we will also have final exams. So we are coming towards the end of the year. So the format, you can use slides or even just a Google Doc, but what I really prefer, and I think would be really powerful, if you could use some audio visual technology like iMovie to create messages from you guys. I think that would be incredible. So my vision is that all of you are creating videos where you're talking and answering the individual questions I'm about to ask you, and then you're creating some animations and including pictures of different things that you've experienced and worked on this year. And it really is sort of this amazing thing that you can hold going into your senior year. I understand that everyone isn't comfortable doing that, and some people may opt to do a more traditional document or presentation style, or even like a Prezi. That's okay, but I would love something a little bit more personal, in that we haven't been able to be as face-to-face and really have those presentations and personal interactions. I would love to have that. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is what we're working on, and it's a three-part reflection for this week. The first part is how you felt as a student during the 11th grade year. Now, the key word here is student, and this is for the entire school. So this does not necessarily pertain just to math class. This is for all of your academic classes. But the first part of the project, this week's project, is all talking about from September to March. So pre-COVID-19, pre-quarantining, pre social distancing, when we were at Tech Boston Academy, the physical space. So I'd like you guys to, as you're doing these, I'd like you to answer each item. Okay, so each of these bullet points needs to be answered. So this is going to be pretty substantial. I want you to describe the positives and negatives from all of your classes. So your English classes, your science classes, it's all about feedback. And this is from an academic standpoint. It's not, I didn't like the teacher because, we just didn't like him. It's talking about the academic part. So positives could be, I loved the structure of the class. We got to be really creative. We worked together a lot. A negative could be, hey, you know what, we worked together too much. I wanted more individual time. Or it got redundant. We kept doing the same things over and over again. So those are some examples. Be as specific as possible. And hopefully we can enact real change for the negative things, and the positive things, things you like. Let's get those in more classes. All right. This is a big one. It's the second item, and we haven't really talked about it recently because it happens in September and October. But that transition to 11th grade. 11th grade oftentimes is talked about as being a very difficult year academically. So talk about the transition from 10th to 11th grade. And the next item, I think, goes with that. Discuss the impact of taking AP classes, honors classes. This, if it applies to you, but I know many of you have taken honors classes and AP classes in the 11th grade year. Is it overwhelming? Many of you have multiple AP classes, multiple honors classes. How is the workload? And it's not so much, this is not so much to complain about this, because honors and AP classes are harder. They do offer more work. So it's not about, hey, it's too much work, it's too much work. It's more about talking about how you were able to manage it, how you were able to be successful, and different strategies about that. And maybe you liked learning about some really complicated stuff, advanced stuff, college level stuff. So talk about that. Then I would like you to find one piece of work that is you are most proud of, and non-math work, because the next topic that we're talking about is strictly math, but not mathematics. So English, science, history, could be an art, could be something in a language class, and I'd like you to actually show it. So if you are doing a slides or a Prezi or something like that, or even just a document, please take a picture or share the file within that. If you were doing an iMovie or a video recording, similar to what I'm doing now, you would want to show it and talk about it there. If anybody's interested in using the software that I use to create something very similar to this, please let me know and I can walk you through that. This is a free software, and if you guys were presenting something like this, that'd be really cool. And then here's the last item, and again, this is not so much the complaining side of things. This is positive change and acting positive change. Suggest one thing you want to see more of at TBA and one thing you want to see less of at TBA, and this is in relation to academics. So, hey, we need to do more social change. We need to do more working with the community. We need to do more working on projects. We need to do more working on our own schools, getting involved in Miss Renaza and decisions of academics and what's taught in the classroom, curriculum design, what goes in our library. Those are the things that you might want to see more of. Just a few suggestions, or the way that the classes are structured. We need to see more, creative curriculum. We need to see more, whatever. You guys are the young people who are experiencing these classes all the time. So this is an opportunity for you to talk about what you want to see inside the classroom. Now recognize it does have to have relevance. It does have to be academic. We need to learn important things. So how are we going to have those important things brought into the classroom? And a great thing to do here is to use examples. Miss Henderson is teaching this, and we really like to. How do we get that into more classes? Mr. McCarthy or Miss Huff is doing this in math class. How do we get all the math teachers to use that technology or teach that type of thing? Mr. Dugan is doing these experiments. How do we get experiments in all of the classes? It's stuff like that. And then one thing you want to see less of at Tech Boston, and that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, less work, less homework. It means it could be an antiquated system. How is the do now work? What is your relationship with homework? Are there too many lectures? Are there not enough lectures? This is really an opportunity for you guys to sort of impact your curriculum. So this is the end of the first topic, and I would want each of these things to be addressed. So as you're explaining these, and again, this is where I think the verbal video side does work better, you're talking about this one. You're talking about this. You're talking about this. You're showing this, and you're also discussing it, and then you are talking about that as well, the last one. So you really have 5 items here to discuss. Okay? All right. Next part is really an analysis of me and your experience with math this year. Tell me about the topics that you enjoyed the most this year. Provide several examples of your best work. It could be electronic things. It could be pictures from your notebook. It could be a lot of different things. We did a lot this year. We did a tremendous amount this year. We did a lot in September. We did a lot in October. And again, this is pre-COVID. So you're looking for the stuff that you did really well prior to breaking off for social distancing. The big things that we did learn about, though, in Algebra 2 and in pre-calculus, is we talked about function analysis. That was how we started our year, with quadratics and function notation and increasing, decreasing, and then looking at different types of functions, cubic functions, square root functions, shifting functions, transitioning functions, translating functions, all of that stuff prior to trigonometry as function analysis. Then we get into trigonometry, which is a big portion of the year, and I want you guys to discuss that. And then finally, towards the end of the year, as we headed into kind of learning about the coronavirus, but still being in school before the city officials shut down school, I want you guys to discuss exponential functions and that concept of things growing very rapidly and how it was very relevant this year due to the nature of COVID-19, and that concept of flattening the curve and an exponential function, having this type of shape, and if that's disease, how that can be very, very scary. And also what we learned with growth when we had our functions, where you had a population and then you had to add a percentage and how this percentage right here was probably the most important topic of the year, in the sense of, and a way to lower that was social distancing and washing hands. And one of the reasons we all, stopped our jobs and stopped our, or many of us stopped our jobs and stopped our school, was to lower this percentage, to lower the infection rate. So I would like a specific part talking about that. And that is sort of the recap of math for the year from September to March. Okay. Just to go through this again, I want you guys to hit all of these 5 items. I want you to refer to these questions as you're doing your presentation or your slides or your project in general. When you talk about the things you enjoyed the most this year, feel free to find something small and say, hey, I really liked function notation. I really liked composition of functions. I really like graphing. I really like the stuff with the bounces and the holes and the asymptotes and stuff like that. It really can be anything. So it's your opportunity to have a voice here. All right. The last slide is this is a reflection on the school as a whole, the non-academic part of it. So you guys are going to be seniors next year, but you're 11th graders this year. And reflection on the community. Rules. Do you have enough time to get from one class to the next? Do you have enough time to interact with each other? Is discipline, the discipline rules, do they make sense? Everyone wants to have their cell phones, but we also need to learn 6 hours a day. So offer some good insight here. Your reflections on community. Do we have enough assemblies? Do you know your faculty members outside of your teachers well enough? Do you know Ms. Renaza well enough? Do you interact with Mr. Cleary and other school administrators enough? Do you have opportunities to interact and create things like dances and pep rallies and have a football game where everyone goes to it, or a basketball game? How are these things in your community? How can they be made better? Just an opportunity for you guys to talk about that. Talk about the positive aspects of the Tech Boston Academy community. There are many, I will tell you that. I've been around schools for a long time, and I know that Tech Boston Academy, while we have our faults, has many, many positives. And I'd love to hear you guys discuss those. But certainly, talk about what things you want to see change within the TBA community. Think big things and think small things. The way that food is given, although that's obviously next year as we go back, it'll be impacted by the coronavirus, but the time you have for lunch, the time we have for the bells, the structure of class, the facilities. Why are some classrooms nice? I think we have a great classroom, but why are some sort of dingy or not really kept up? What can we do to make everything better at Tech Boston Academy? And then any other thoughts about the Tech Boston Academy? And again, this is still pre-coronavirus. So this is the community when we were all together. This is the day-to-day, 740 to 228 school. All right? So that is this week. This is what I want you to do this week. Again, I prefer that you do a video. It could be a YouTube video or an iMovie, or if you'd like to use this program that I'm using, it's called OBS. But if you do want to take the more traditional slides answering these problems, these questions, that would be okay. But again, I really think if you're comfortable with it, going a little extra, creating these videos, I'm more able to use them for the actual change. I can show one to Ms. Renaza and say, hey, this is this student. She's a great kid. Here's her ideas. Here's a clip. And they watch it and they're like, wow, that can make so much sense. Let's take that person's ideas and let's try to make them happen, or their reflections, and let's expand that. Okay, so that's pre-coronavirus. It wouldn't make sense to talk about this school year and reflect about this school year without talking about the coronavirus. So here we go, and I wanted to code it differently. So this is the portion, and I coded it in black just to have a different color. So this is the 11th grade math final project, part 2, online learning and COVID-19. So you're going to have this next week. And it's a similar concepts, except now we're talking about it under the context of COVID-19. So how do you feel as a student at Tech Boston during the online learning? I think it started March 17th or 18th.